Okay, so today we are looking at area of circles, and we're going to be able to answer two questions by the end of this class. One is, what is the formula to find an area of the circle? And the second question we'll answer is, how do we find the area of a circle? So here is the formula for area of a circle. It is this A equals pi r squared, where that r squared is equivalent to here, this r times r. That 2 just represents that's the number of times that we multiply that r. Okay, and if you recall, when we learned of identifying parts of a circle, that r represents the radius. So the formula for area of a circle is nothing more than r pi times r squared, or r times r radius, radius times radius. So 3 steps that I want you to use when solving for area of a circle is, first is we need to identify the radius. That's important. In order to find the area of a circle is we need the r, we need the radius. Okay. So once you identify the radius, we're simply going to do the second step, and we're going to substitute it into this formula up here. Okay, that we're just going to substitute whatever we find as radius into that r, either that r squared or that r times r. And then the third step is we're just going to solve. Okay. So most importantly here, always identify the radius. So let's take a look at a couple problems and we'll work through some examples. Okay. So here is our first example. Okay. Here we have a circle and it gives us this radius. Our radius here is 13. Remember, radius is the center and it's kind of that halfway. So we have our r equals 13. Okay, so that's step 1, I identified the radius. Now that I've identified the radius, I'm going to write it, plug it into my formula. Okay, and we know that area equals pi r squared, or if I write it out, it's pi times 13 times 13. Okay. Now from here, we're going to solve this, and you are going to solve this by going to your Desmos calculator and plugging it into your Desmos. Okay. Onto your Desmos calculator, you are going to use the pi key. Okay, make sure you hit that pi key, and then you're going to be multiplying that 13 times 13. Okay. And for these notes, I'm going to go ahead and round this to the nearest hundredth. So always make sure you pay attention to your teacher, to whatever your assignment says, is how far that we want this to be rounded. I'm going to round this to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 places after the decimal. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug this in, hit my pi key on Desmos, 13 times 13. And I am getting an area of 530. And I'm going to round this to 2 decimal places after and 93. Okay. And I always want to make sure I put a label at the end. Remember, so since this is in feet, I'm going to write this as feet. And it will be squared. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so first step, identify the radius. Did you identify the radius as 8? You got it. There's the radius as 8. So I know that my r equals 8. And now I'm going to plug this into my formula. This is step 2, plugging it into my formula. So I know my area equals, I'm going to hit my pi key in my Desmos calculator, and then multiply it 8 times 8. And now I'm going to round this to the nearest hundredth, 2 places after the decimal. And I get 201.06. And I'm going to put my label at the end. Well, this already tells me it's in yards, so yards squared. Okay. Let's look at number 3. Okay. So here, I encourage you to pause this video of notes. Take a few minutes, see if you can do this one on your own, and then we'll come back together. Okay. So how did we do? Feeling confident? Well, let's see. So first I'm going to identify the radius. Well, here is my radius. Okay. And so I'll just write that off this side. My radius is 10 feet. And now I'm going to plug this into my formula, second step, and put it into my Desmos calculator so I can solve it. So I'm going to type in my pi key and then my 10 times my 10. And I'm going to round this to the nearest hundredth. So I have my area. I got 314.16. And this is in feet, so it's going to be feet squared. How did you do? Congratulate yourself. I know you did amazing. So in these previous examples, we were given the radius, okay? What happens if we are given the diameter and we're asked to find the area of a circle? Hopefully you'll recall that the diameter is the full distance of the entire length of the circle that runs through the center from one end to the other. Okay, with radius, okay, we only needed half of that. So if you are ever given the diameter, okay, you can't use diameter to find the area of the circle. So if you're ever given the diameter, you must first divide it by 2 to get the radius. Because if you recall, radius is just equal to 1/2 the diameter. Okay, so if we're ever given the diameter, we need to first do some calculation to find the radius. So let's find the area of a circle of this example here. Okay, so remember, the first thing we're always going to look at is, one, we need to identify the radius. So here we know they gave us the diameter. So the first thing we're going to do, the diameter is 12. We are going to divide that by 2. Okay, which puts us at 6. 6 is our radius. That's our R. This is what we are going to use when we plug into the formula here. So then from our previous examples, we're going to go into our Desmos, okay, and I'm going to calculate the area. It's our pi and our radius, which is 6 times 6, okay. And now when I plug that into Desmos, I get that the area is 113.10. I'm going to look at my label here. It's in centimeters. Centimeters squared. Okay. Always remember, radius is half the diameter. I can tell you, always check the problem. Okay. Always check the problem to make sure, are you given the radius or the diameter? Okay. Remember, if you're given the diameter, that it's just half of the diameter will give you the radius. I hope these notes were helpful. Move on to your assignment. Any questions, please let us know.